We all know how important it is to make sure that our members are engaged. Engagement is fundamental to the success of your membership business. Engaged members are happy members, and happy members tend to stick around longer and keep paying you month after month, year after year. And as a membership site owner, it can be really easy to tie yourself up in knots trying to come up with new ways to get your members to engage with your website, with your content, with your community, and with each other. From fancy gamification to complex member loyalty schemes, laborious outreach programs, it's enough to drive you mad. However, often the simplest things are the most effective. And today I'm going to talk about something that's extremely simple but massively effective as a way of engaging with your members. The humble member Roundup email. We're going to talk about what that is and how you can use it to improve communication and engage with your members in episode 278 of the Membership Guys podcast. Here we go.
You're listening to the Membership Guys podcast, bringing you proven, practical tips and advice from the leading experts on growing a successful membership business each and every week. And now, here's your host, Mike Morrison.
All right, so today we're talking all about sending regular member Roundup emails. And a member Roundup email is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It does what it says on the tin. It's a roundup of the latest membership news, the latest developments and highlights from your community that you send to your members regularly, just in order to keep them up to date with everything that's going on and to try to entice them to actually participate in what's happening inside your membership. It's not something fancy. We're not sharing some sort of incredible newfound discovery here in terms of engagement tactics. But as we said, I think sometimes people get so tied up in all these fancy tech solutions or supposed solutions to member engagement that they neglect the simpler things like, actually just communicating with your members. You would think that seems obvious, but it always surprises us just how many membership owners neglect the basic communication strategy. So, why create a member roundup first of all? Well, the short answer is that regularly communicating with your members and keeping them up to date will help to aid both member engagement and, as a result, retention. So your member roundup could highlight any new content that has been added into your membership that members might otherwise miss if they've not been logging in. Sending these roundups can also just increase the connection between you and your members because you're keeping that dialogue going even during periods of time where maybe they just haven't had the free time or the mental bandwidth to be logging into your site. You're keeping that connection going by staying in touch with them, regularly keeping them in the loop. It can also give a way to encourage members to engage in your community. If they see what they're missing out on, or if they see what great stuff's happening, they're going to want to be a part of that. Your member roundups can also really reinforce the value of being a member of your site. We always say that memberships are a value exchange. If you want people to keep paying you on a monthly basis, you need to deliver value on a monthly basis. And so if people are actually seeing through these roundups that you are delivering value, you are releasing content, you are sharing success stories, so there's value to be had in your membership, it reminds them of just how much it's worth being part of your community. And also your roundup can simply just give people that nudge, give them that reminder that they maybe were planning to spend some time in your membership, but perhaps other things got on top of them. It just gives them that little reminder that your site exists. So they're all pretty valuable. The overall aim of your roundup is to get members to click through on a link or to load up your membership site, get them back into your site, consuming your content and engaging and participating in your community. The more that they're doing that, the more they're visiting the site, the more content they're likely to consume, the more engaged in the community they'll be, and the more likely they are to actually get the most from your membership and achieve the results that they're looking for. And that's what you want. You want people to be using your site. You want them to be getting what they paid for and extracting the most value as possible. So you owe it to your members to encourage that sort of stuff. So what sort of format should you use? So the main Roundup format that you'll consider will be email. So assuming that you have a designated email list just for your members, then it's going to be really straightforward for you to create and send a regular member-only email. You could also do it via video as well. So maybe you decide that instead of sending a weekly email, you shoot a quick 5-minute update video. And, certain audiences might respond to that, particularly if you, for example, are using a Facebook group for your membership community. Maybe you already do Facebook Live Q&As. Then that sort of video-based live streaming format might be a better fit than email. Just obviously recognize that if you choose to use that alternative format, it's going to require a little more effort. It's going to require a little more on the logistic side of things than writing a simple email would need. But, once you've got a process in place, it can still be relatively simple to maintain that on a regular basis. And even if you are doing a video roundup rather than an email roundup, you're still going to want to send an email to your members that actually tell them, hey, we just done this video roundup, click the link through to watch it, rather than relying on them just organically discovering it. So you can mix it up with different formats if you know that there's better ways of reaching your audience. If you are using a messenger bot to reach your audience and you know they engage with that more than they engage with email, then you could go down that route. But ultimately, the simplest, most straightforward approach will be a regular weekly email roundup. And we've definitely found that weekly hits the sweet spot in terms of frequency. So this is going to depend obviously on how much is going on in your membership. If you don't have a lot of activity, if you don't have much to report, then you might look at a less frequent roundup. But by and large, for us, for clients, for members in our community, we've definitely found weekly hits the sweet spot, particularly if within your roundup email, you're including links through to discussions that are happening within your community. If you're only sending your roundup once a month, then that's limiting yourself on what kind of discussions you might highlight within your roundup, because you don't want to send people to a discussion that ended 3 or 4 weeks ago, right? So weekly definitely works best for us. And if you're just starting out with sending member roundup emails, then we'd recommend that you start weekly. More important than the frequency, though, is the consistency. You need to be consistent with this. And ideally, you want to get into a routine that your members can rely on. So designate a particular day of the week that you're going to send your update email. Every Saturday, for example, is when we send our member digest. Every Saturday morning, and actually, you can pretty much set your watch by it. In fact, even though we've been doing this for nearly 5 years now, we pretty much send it out roughly the same time every single Saturday. There've been a couple of times if we've been overseas, so if we've been in the US, where obviously you're looking at anywhere from a 5 to 8 hour difference. When we've sent the email in what to us is the morning, over in the States, that's kind of 8 hours later than the time we'd be sending it out when we're over in the UK. And even just that difference, that break in that consistent routine that our audience have been accustomed to, has meant we've had emails from people saying, are you guys okay? Usually I'm accustomed to having the member roundup by midday. I'm accustomed to you sending it out by this time. It hasn't come. I'm getting worried about you. Right? That's when you know that you've established a good routine that your members can rely on, and your members kind of just know, all right, even if I haven't had the time to jump into the community and membership academy this week, I know Saturday morning I'm going to get a roundup of all the highlights, any discussions that are worth diving into, any new content. So yeah, it always makes us laugh when we get those little emails saying, hey, is everything all right? It's just strange to have not had the roundup by now. So there you go. So in terms of what to include in your member email, Generally, you're going to want to list any new or updated content that's been added into your membership. So that might also include replays of live trainings or replays of Q&As, just letting people know that they're available and linking directly to them. We also like highlighting a selection of key discussions that are going on in your community. So really either interesting or even controversial conversations. Don't necessarily have to be the most popular discussions, just anything that you feel is worth bringing to your members' attention, but also is maybe juicy enough to get them to want to click through and jump in and participate themselves. We also like to highlight any member wins or perhaps even spotlight a specific member, a member of the week, a member of the month. So we have a section within our community where people can share their wins. And anytime people do that, we always make sure that we include them within our weekly member email. And we say within the email, huge congrats to John, who just hit the 1,000 member milestone. Click here to congratulate John. So we're making sure that we're sharing, we're celebrating those wins, not just in our community, but also through to our wider member base via our roundups. We also detail any upcoming member events, or if there's maybe real world meetups, maybe you've got Zoom calls, maybe it's live Q&As or webinars. Make use of your member roundup email to remind people of those dates. That's going to make it more likely you get people attending, because again, quite often when we're posting, the upcoming dates for people's diaries, dates of upcoming live calls or events, often all of that information is readily available inside the membership from the member dashboard. Maybe there's a member calendar, but if somebody hasn't logged in this past week, they might not have seen it. And that's the approach you're taking. If someone just hasn't had the chance to log in this week, what do they need to know? What have they missed? What should I make sure that I highlight, that I remind them of? And in addition to all these kind of content-specific discussions, reminders, all that sort of stuff, it's also worth using these roundups to just give a brief update on what you're doing. What's happened within your world over the past week? You're not obviously going to kind of detail if you went out and you got wasted halfway through the week, but if it's relevant, if it's talking about your industry, if it's something that's going to be interesting, then again, it's just a good way of having that little personal connection while also filling people in on maybe some exciting things that you're working on that they're going to benefit from further on down the line. So what I would do is look at what your membership offers first and foremost, because, if you're not running events or doing anything live, then some of the stuff we talked about won't apply to you. But use these suggestions to nail down a fairly consistent format. Again, it's much, much easier to do this on a regular basis if you have a fairly consistent format for every roundup. So in every roundup, you'll start off with a little bit of an introduction, a bit of a recap of your week, maybe something interesting that's happened. Then you'll get into listing out the new content, and maybe you'll have that actually divided up into a section. So you design the actual layout of the email, so there's specific sections for these things. So you have the intro, you get into any new content, you get into top discussions from your community. You then have the section for your member wins, and then you have a section on upcoming dates. And then there's a closing line and you're out. So nailing down what that format's going to be, again, it doesn't need to be mega complicated, and making an effort to stick to that every single week. That not only makes it easier for you to create that roundup, it also makes sure that it's familiar and it's easier for your members to consume. And of course, if you're following that fairly consistent structure, that fairly consistent approach, then you're going to be able to set up a template that you can use within your email marketing service. Every email marketing service will have the ability for you to create a pre-made template. That's going to make it easier for you to construct your email every week and get it sent out. And something that will really, really be useful is to have like a Google Docs or maybe a particular board or section in your project management system where you keep a note, you keep a track of any links that you want to include within your roundup. So as you're checking into your community throughout the week, if any discussions jump out, copy that link, pop it into a Google Doc or pop it into your Trello board or whatever you're actually using, so that when it comes time for you to actually create that roundup, you have that as a reference. Because if you don't have that place to kind of take those notes, then discussions in particular, if you want to link people to discussions, those sort of things can be really easy to lose track of, to forget about. Making that list throughout the week or throughout the month, if you're sending these out less frequently, again, they're going to make it much quicker, much easier for you to actually write your Roundup email or create your Roundup video if you're going down that route. If you have a virtual assistant, or even better, if you have a community manager, this can be part of their role. Part of their job can be to collate a list of recommended discussions that you can use in your Roundup email, and also collate a list of any wins or anything else that you want to celebrate within those emails too. And so then it's just a case of sitting down each week or each month or what have you, and putting this all together into your template and sending it out. And you will find that this will lead to more members logging into your site, more members consuming your content, and certainly more members participating in your community. And you may also notice members engaging with you personally more as well. We love it when members hit reply and they respond back to those Roundup emails. And usually it's just a nice little comment. Quite often it's something that maybe is specific to what we said in the intro. So it's something that has got nothing to do with business, nothing to do with memberships. Callie's maybe mentioned something about, what the cat did or something dumb like that. And someone replies to it. Again, these little things can really help form those connections that go way beyond typical levels of member engagement. Now, if your membership site's already up and running, you've not done this kind of Roundup email before, then what I would say, the first one you send out, make sure you just let people know that this is something they're going to be receiving regularly, so they have that expectation. Whatever else is going on with your life, we're going to be checking in every week to keep you apprised, to keep you updated, and to give you these quick direct links to the stuff that we think is really worth your attention. Again, just sets expectations as well. It's a good idea to make mention of these roundups during your onboarding sequence too, so that your new members know to expect a regular email. And as I said at the beginning, this isn't some sort of magic bullet. It's not rocket science. It's not some super secret tactic. It's real simple, real straightforward stuff. But as we said, often it's the simple stuff that gets overlooked when people are distracted by all these shiny different solutions that do all this crazy complex stuff to try and boost engagement. We've tried a lot of that stuff. We do a lot of that stuff. But by a large margin, sending that simple weekly member roundup email is without doubt one of the biggest drivers of member engagement within our membership, and lots of people in our community tell us they're seeing the same things within their memberships too. We found member roundups to be an invaluable addition to pretty much every type of membership out there, particularly given how simple and easy they are to create. So if you're not using this tactic already, think about how you could utilize a regular member roundup email within your own membership and just start doing it. This weekend, send out your first member roundup email. And if you're already sending them, have a think about whether you're including all the sorts of things that we talked about in today's episode. If you're not, maybe start making some little tweaks, maybe add in a few of the things that we've mentioned. All right, that is it for this week. Thank you so much for spending time with me. If this was the first time listening to the Membership Guys podcast, I appreciate you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button in your podcast app to make sure you don't miss a single episode. If you're a long-term listener, you know I love you. You know I appreciate you. Thank you so much for continuing to listen to the show. I'll be back again next week with another installment of the Membership Guys podcast.